In a big city, there was an old hospital. Inside this hospital, there was a room numbered 313, which had been locked for many years. Everyone, doctors, nurses, and staff, was afraid of it. People whispered that something very strange happened there, and no one wanted to enter. One day, the hospital suddenly became extremely crowded with patients. The staff didn't have enough space to treat everyone. The head doctor called a young nurse named Ayesha, who was known for being brave and hardworking. He told her to open room 313 and prepare it for new patients. Ayesha felt nervous. She had heard the scary stories about the room. She asked the other nurses why it was locked, but they only shook their heads and said, "Don't go in there. It's not safe." Still, Ayesha knew she had to do her job. She took the key and walked slowly toward the room. When she reached the door, the hospital hallway was completely quiet. She carefully turned the key and opened the door. A cold, strange breeze came out, sending shivers down her spine. Inside, the room was dusty and dark. Old surgical tools were scattered across the floor, and broken machines stood silently against the walls. The air smelled strange, like chemicals mixed with something old and metallic. Ayesha started cleaning the room carefully. Suddenly, the lights began flickering on and off by themselves. Every flicker made her heart beat faster. Then, an old chair shifted slightly on its own, and Ayesha jumped back in fear. The room felt colder and darker with every passing second. Then she noticed a monitor, which had been turned off, suddenly turning on. She heard the soft sound of a heartbeat. Beep, beep, beep. Even though no patient was in the room. She looked around nervously, feeling eyes watching her. There was no one there, yet the sensation of being observed grew stronger with every second. Then she heard a faint scraping sound from the floor, like something moving just below her feet. She shone her flashlight, and for a moment, it seemed the rusty tools on the floor were shifting by themselves. Ayesha's fear grew. The room was no longer just old and abandoned. It felt alive, as if something unseen was controlling it. Terrified, Ayesha realized that room 313 wasn't empty. Something dark and restless was inside. She wanted to leave, but curiosity and responsibility held her there. The heartbeat continued, echoing in her ears, reminding her that the room had secrets, and whatever haunted it was far from finished. While cleaning room 313, Ayesha discovered a dusty old cabinet filled with files. The cabinet had been locked for years, and the papers inside were yellowed and torn. Curiosity mixed with fear as she opened one of the files. Each file contained the patient's name, age, and admission date. At first, it seemed like regular hospital records, but as she read further, she realized something terrifying. These patients had never gone home. Every file's last page showed that the patient had disappeared mysteriously after being admitted to room 313. Ayesha's hands trembled as she looked at the papers. She felt a cold draft and thought she heard soft breathing, though the room seemed empty. Her heart raced. It was as if the walls themselves were watching her. The more files she opened, the more she realized a pattern. Every patient had been treated, or rather experimented on, by the same doctor, Dr. Rahman. He had been a brilliant surgeon, but his secret experiments were cruel. He had performed illegal operations on patients without their consent. Many patients simply vanished, and no one knew what had happened to them. Ayesha felt chills run down her spine as she imagined the horrors that might have occurred in this room. As she carefully returned the files to the cabinet, the monitor suddenly turned on by itself. She heard a faint, steady heartbeat. Beep, 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 even though no one was in the room. The air grew colder, and shadows seemed to move in the corners. Ayesha realized that room 313 was more than just an abandoned hospital room. It held the restless spirits of the missing patients, trapped by Dr. Rahman's dark experiments. Ayesha backed away slowly, her mind racing. She knew she had uncovered a terrible secret, and that room 313 was far from empty. Something alive, invisible, and dangerous was still waiting inside. A few days later, room 313 was opened again for patients. The hospital staff thought the room was finally safe, but as soon as the first patient was admitted, strange things began to happen. That night, the patient behaved oddly. Their face looked pale and tired, and they kept repeating the same words over and over. "The doctor is coming. The doctor is coming." Ayesha decided to check on the patients that night. As she entered the room, she saw that the patient's behavior was not normal at all. They moved strangely, almost as if an invisible force was controlling their body. Ayesha tried to calm them, but the patient wouldn't listen. The fear in the room felt heavy, like the walls themselves were watching her. She then looked at the patient records to understand more. What she discovered terrified her. Every person admitted to room 313 seemed to vanish mysteriously after a night. No one had ever left alive. But the files showed a pattern. Every patient had been treated by Dr. Rahman before disappearing. His experiments had linked them to something dark, something beyond the normal world. As Ayesha observed another patient, their face suddenly looked pale and strange, almost like they had already been through room 313 before. The monitor, which had been off, turned on by itself. The steady sound of a heartbeat echoed in the room. Beep, beep, beep. Ayesha realized the room was no longer just an old hospital space. It had become a place where spirits of past patients lingered, trapped by Dr. Rahman's experiments. Ayesha's heart pounded. She knew she had to leave, but the fear was overwhelming. She felt that the patients and Dr. Rahman's spirit were not done with her yet. Whatever haunted room 313 was still awake, still watching, and still waiting for the next person to become its victim. Ayesha wanted to learn more about the secrets of room 313, so she began searching the hospital archives and asking old staff about the history of the room. She discovered the terrifying truth. Dr. Rahman had been a brilliant surgeon, but he had a dark side. He performed secret and illegal experiments on his patients. Many of them disappeared mysteriously, and no one ever knew what happened to them. Some staff even whispered that Dr. Rahman had died years ago, but his spirit still haunted the hospital, especially room 313. Ayesha realized that room 313 was more than just a dusty, abandoned room. It had become Dr. Rahman's secret laboratory. Everything strange she had seen, the flickering lights, the moving chairs, the strange heartbeat, was connected to him. The room seemed alive, as if his presence still controlled it. One night, Ayesha returned to room 313. The monitor turned on by itself, and the heartbeat beep, beep, beep echoed through the dark room. Shadows moved across the walls, and the cold air made her shiver. Then she saw Dr. Rahman's reflection in the mirror. His ghostly face looked straight at her. He spoke softly but clearly. "You will be my next assistant. You must complete my research." Ayesha understood the terrifying truth. The patients were not just missing. They were trapped spirits inside the room. Dr. Rahman's ghost was controlling them, and now he wanted her to join them. Filled with fear, she forced herself to leave the room, stepping back into the empty hallway. But even outside, she knew the danger was not gone. Room 313 was alive with dark energy, and Dr. Rahman's spirit, along with the trapped souls, was still waiting. No one who entered the room could ever be completely safe, and the horrors of the past were far from over one night. Ayesha returned to room 313. She had learned much about the dark secrets of the room, but her curiosity pushed her to explore further. As she opened the door, a chill ran down her spine. The room was quiet, except for the faint glow of the monitor. Shadows seemed to stretch along the walls, and the air was icy cold. As she walked carefully, Ayesha noticed a section of the floor slightly ajar, as if someone had hidden a trapdoor. Her heart raced, but she lifted the panel and discovered a hidden staircase leading down. She descended slowly, and at the bottom, she found a secret underground operation theater. Dust-covered surgical tools and old patient records were scattered across the floor. The scene looked frozen in time, as if Dr. Rahman's experiments had never stopped. As Ayesha shone her flashlight around, she saw shadows moving in the corners. The spirits of the missing patients seemed trapped here, frozen in fear, whispering warnings. A faint voice echoed, "Leave, the doctor wants you." Ayesha realized that Dr. Rahman's spirit was still controlling the room and the souls of the patients. Suddenly, the monitor turned on by itself, and the steady sound of a heartbeat filled the underground room. Beep, beep, beep. The air felt thick and heavy, as if the walls themselves were alive. Ayesha understood the terrifying truth. Room 313 was no longer just a room. It had become a dark world where Dr. Rahman's spirit ruled. The missing patients' souls were trapped, and anyone who entered could become his next assistant. Terrified, Ayesha ran up the stairs and closed the trapdoor behind her. But she knew the spirits had not left. Room 313's horrors were still alive. waiting for the next person brave or unlucky enough to enter. Ayesha knew she had uncovered the full secret of room 313. She understood that the strange lights, the moving tools, and the heartbeat on the monitor were all connected to Dr. Rahman's spirit. Determined to face the horror, she decided to confront the ghost and put an end to the room's terrors. That night, she stepped into room 313. The monitor immediately turned on, the steady heartbeat echoing through the dark, empty space. Beep, beep, beep. Shadows stretched across the walls, moving as if alive. Ayesha gripped her flashlight tightly, scanning every corner. The air was icy and heavy, filled with a sense of unseen eyes watching her every move. Then, in the mirror, she saw Dr. Rahman's reflection. His ghostly figure stared directly at her, his voice whispering from the glass. "You will be my next assistant. You must complete my research." Fear surged through Ayesha, but she forced herself to stay calm. She grabbed nearby flammable objects and started a fire, smoke filling the room. The shadows and heartbeat grew louder, almost frantic, as if the spirits themselves were resisting. Ayesha ran toward the exit as the flames spread, slamming the door shut behind her. Outside, the hallway looked normal, but her heart was racing, knowing she had survived by mere courage. A few days later, in another ward of the hospital, a monitor switched on by itself, the sound of a heartbeat echoing through the room. When hospital staff checked the records, a new file had appeared, with Ayesha's name on it. Room 313's horrors were not gone. Dr. Rahman's spirit, along with the trapped souls of his patients, still lingered in the hospital, waiting for the next unsuspecting person to enter. Room 313 had become more than a haunted room. It was a prison, a trap, and a warning. Some secrets never die.